Welcome to the Gala of Hopes and Dreams, and thank you for joining Israel Tennis and Education Centers Foundation for what will be an unforgettable evening. I'm Ido Samuel, or the way they call me in the US, Ido, and I'm an actor originally from Herzliya, Israel, and now Los Angeles. I am honored to be your MC for this very special evening, bringing you the tastes and sounds of Israel. For the next 35 minutes, from the comfort of your own home, you're about to experience a unique spice and culinary demonstration with Spice Master and Israeli chef Lior Lev Shekraz, owner of La Boite, a biscuits and spice shop in New York City, and the director of the new world-class Culinary Institute in Kiryat Shmona. You know, when I cook, there's just something about the multiple levels of flavors introduced by a mix of spices that can elevate any meal to new heights. Enjoy this culinary experience with Chef Shekraz to spice up your life with your newfound cooking skills. After your experience, all of our guests from the 3 tastings will be transported to the main event. Enjoy!
Hi everyone, my name is Lior Lev Shekraz from La Boite in Manhattan, New York City. We have a spice and cookie company located here. We've been around for the last 13 years, blending spices, sourcing and curating ingredients from all over the world, and helping people to elevate their food, make it fun, make it accessible, make it tasty, and just bring a lot of creativity into your everyday food without changing the way you cook, just by integrating new spices from different places and allowing you to travel without leaving your kitchen in a way. I was born and raised in Israel, in the Upper Eastern Galilee, near Kiryat Shmona, and I'm very excited to be part of this great event and be with all of you through that and share my childhood experiences growing up near Kiryat Shmona, near the tennis center in Kiryat Shmona, where a lot of kids, including myself, got the opportunity to play. I never played professionally, I'm not that good, but however, lots of young talent did come up from the region. So thanks to the amazing contribution and donation to the tennis centers around the country, young kids and older kids can really, get a better sports education in tennis and be successful in it. So I want to, on my behalf, thank you for the amazing job that you're doing and giving this opportunity to a lot of kids and people around the country in Israel via tennis. We have for you today 3 recipes that I'm going to be cooking. Hopefully you'll cook them afterwards in your own home, using some spices, the ones that you have, the ones that you do. I really hope that you'll start considering using spices more every day, breakfast, lunch, dinner. There's really no special occasion. Spices could really take your food from a 2-dimension to a 3rd-dimension cooking. I don't see any other way but to use spices on a daily basis. So I hope you'll join me from today. Revisit whatever you have in your kitchen pantry. Maybe get rid of some of your old spices and bring some new ones into your kitchen. Do some reorganization and just get the best possible spices as you can, because using great ingredients, proteins and produce and mediocre spices does not make sense. So this is an open invitation to start using spices and good ones. So let's get cooking. The first recipe that I'm going to prepare for you is a fennel salad. It is winter and fennel is at its best during this time of year. So we're going to do a very simple preparation of sliced fennel with some oranges and tons of herbs that I have here and some sunflower seeds. But to begin, we need spices. So we're going to make a blend with 4 different spices. As you're going to see, you don't need that many spices to make a great blend. And instead of using them individually, we're going to make one blend. And this blend, you can keep it and use it for another fennel salad. You could use it for fish, vegetable, chicken, whatever you want. It's a blend that's great with many other things. So we have some fennel seeds, some caraway seeds, a little bit of celery seeds, and a little bit of this Turkish chili flake called urfa. It's a beautiful, deep chili flake, a little bit of heat, of course, but really notes of chocolate and wine tannin. So it's a really complex chili flake. So for the chili flakes, we need nothing. We're just going to leave them as is. However, we're going to take our caraway seeds and our fennel seeds and put them in this little coffee grinder or spice grinder, whatever you want to call it. And we're just going to give them tiny little bit of grinding. We don't want to grind them completely into fine dust and powder. We still want to have a little bit of texture, which is very important in food. And as you can see, it requires no effort whatsoever versus a mortar and pestle that you're going to have to put a little bit more energy. I'm using this little pastry brush to just clean the lid. This particular model, the insert comes out, so it's not a big deal. We have this beautiful blend right here. I'm going to add it to our Urfa chili, and then we're going to take a little spoon and just give it a little mix. What's also nice about doing this step is that you can make a much bigger quantity and keep it in a jar so that when you're preparing this particular salad or something else, you don't have to spend any time at all because the spice portion of your recipe is already done and ready to go. So we have our blend just like that. I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to put this aside as well. We have no need for it. And we're going to move on to our fennel salad. So as I mentioned, we're going to use some fennel bulbs. I trimmed a little bit of the greens that came with it. Don't discard them. They're fantastic roasted. You can also add them into a soup or a broth. Some people like to cut the fennel in half like this and then slice it. You could dice it. I like personally just to slice it a little bit like that. In that way, it also cuts a little bit the fibers. Just starting to add this into our bowl here. And then we're going to start adding a bunch of things. So first of all, we're going to add some of our spice blend, just like that. And we're going to add a little bit, and then towards the end, see if we need a little bit more. I'm going to add everything else. Add a little bit of salt. And this is something you could do definitely ahead of time without the herb component. Just season your fennel so that when you're ready to serve, all you need is to add your herbs. So a little bit of olive oil. For the acidity, we're going to use two things. We're going to have some orange, but also a little bit of sherry vinegar. I'm a big fan of vinegars, so this will go really nicely with it. So a little bit of vinegar. Mix it up a little bit so it's coated and it starts slightly marinating, if you will. And then both for a nice fruity flavor, but also for some acidity, I'm going to add some orange. So for the orange, there's a couple of ways to go about it. One fine way is just to using a knife, peeling it off just like that, removing the skin. And then we're simply going to cut it in half, just like that. And then cut slices of our orange. And if you want to use a grapefruit or blood oranges are going to start the season soon. And then I have some scallions here. If you have some chive, that would work fantastic. If you want to use some red onions or white onions or shallot, that would work great too. Here in this case, I'm going to add a couple of scallions, green and white part, of course. There we go, just like that. And then I also have here a bunch of different herbs. So I have a little bit of mint. And the mint you could either chop. I like to just simply, with my hands, tear it into like these big pieces. I have also some dill. So we're gonna just simply, not even chopping, just the whole, just the leaves without the stem. The last herb for this case, because as I mentioned, you could use any herb you want pretty much. We're gonna add some parsley. This is flat parsley. If you have curly parsley, that would work too. So here we have our salad with the herbs, and I'm gonna add and mix them all up. Couple of other things that I'm gonna add is a few sunflower seeds. If you have any walnuts or pecans or peanuts or almonds or sunflower seeds, those would work as well. This could just be great as is. I like cheese a lot, so I have here a little bit of feta cheese. So I'm going to add a little bit of this crumbled feta. If you want to add a little bit of yogurt, we're going to give this a nice good mix, just like that. Maybe just a little bit more of the spice blend. Really delicious, crunchy, herbaceous with a little acid note. And here you have it, your feta and orange and herb salad with some sunflower seeds and feta. Hope you enjoy this. All right, so we made our great salad with the fennel and citrus, and now I'm gonna prepare for you a North African, kind of became even Middle Eastern dish at this point, called Chryme. A lot of variations of it, of course. What most people will agree is that it's a tomato-based preparation, so sort of like a braise of tomatoes and different seasonings, and then you cook a fish in it. What fish, totally up to you. Today we're going to use some beautiful cod that I have here, and then the tomatoes, some garlic, lots of cilantro, lemon. We're going to get to it in a second. As we spoke about earlier, the first and most important thing maybe is the spices. So in order to make a Chryme spice blend, we have some turmeric here. We have some Aleppo chili flakes. So again, not too hot, nice citrus, bright flavors, cumin seeds, and some coriander seeds. So the turmeric and the Aleppo need no grinding. They're already kind of flaky and powder. So what we will do is we're going to take our coriander and cumin and grind them just a little bit in our spice coffee grinder here, just by adding them right here. And then pulsing them a little bit. Now, once you have your spice blend ready, and I suggest you do it the day before, a couple of days before, is to season your fish, if possible, the day before or the morning of. A lot of people don't tend to think about seasoning fish ahead of time. I think it's a fantastic thing. You get a lot more flavor because it just has time to penetrate. The one thing you don't want to add is the salt component. Otherwise, you're going to cure your fish. So just season with the spice blend if you can. If not, it's not a big deal. You could do it right before you start cooking. But it's also going to be a good time-saving trick because if your fish is already seasoned, you pull it out of your refrigerator, your sauce is ready. All you have to do is just put everything together and you're going to save yourself a whole lot of time. And so we have that. I'm going to give it a little mix here just to get all of the spices together. Again, you can make a much bigger portion of this. Keep it in a jar and then try this with some roast vegetables. Add it into a broth. It's going to be really delicious. And many, many other preparations. So don't just make this blend just for Chryme. Try it on pretty much everything that you're cooking and see if you like it. So we have our spice blend right here. I'm gonna season my fish now with salt because we're gonna cook it quite soon. So we're gonna add some salt on our cod, and you could do this with snapper, black cod, even salmon will work nicely. So you see really nice yellowish kind of color and still see some of the parts of the coriander and cumin, so there's a little bit of texture to it. And if you do it the day before, you're going to see that it really takes on much more color. And so what I suggest is that you keep one hand that's dry for the seasoning and use your other hand to flip the fish so that you don't put a wet hand inside your spice blend. And again, a little bit of salt also on this side. It's important to season both sides because you eat both sides. So this is our fish. We're going to set it aside. And then we're going to start preparing our sauce, which is one of the key components. So some fresh, some garlic, a couple of garlic cloves. Just gonna slightly chop them and add them into our pan and really building. We have our garlic. I'm just gonna give it, and then add a little bit of olive oil to the bottom of our pan here. That's by Israeli standards, a little bit of oil. Add that in. We can increase a little bit the heat, and start slowly cooking the garlic. We definitely don't want to burn it. We're going to add a little bit of salt so that we gain more flavor in our sauce and not wait for the end. So I'm going to add that, and then increase a little bit the heat. And then the other thing that I'm going to add is a little bit more of my spice blend. I'm going to keep a little bit just for the end to finish it up once I'm ready. Start cooking it like that. While this is coming to temperature and starting to cook, I'm going to make my next step here. So this is something that I've rarely seen. It's something that I came up throughout the year, is the addition of a lemon in the sauce. You'd see a lot of time, obviously, lemon juice added to fish dishes as they're ready, but I always was missing a little bit of acidity in the sauce and a little bit of like texture. So that's something that I came up with over the years. I simply take a lemon and cut it. I slice it up just like that. And the next thing I'm going to do is actually, once I'm done with the lemon, I'm going to start adding it into the pan. I do want to cook it just a touch to soften it up a little bit, extract some of the flavor, and not just add it into the made sauce, because then it's just not going to have enough time to cook. So we definitely want to make sure it cooks just a little. So I'm going to add it here into my pan. This great scent of the citrus and the garlic all mixed together. So just a couple of seconds just to get more, build up some more flavor, soften up a little bit our lemon. And it's going to retain a lot of its texture even after it's cooking, so you're really going to get a nice acidic bite as you're eating the fish. And it's just great. It really, really adds a lot of complexity to the dish. The next thing I'm going to add is some tomato paste. And again, personally, I like to slightly cook my tomato paste before I add any additional liquid. It again gives it more flavor, more character. So I like to kind of really dry it in the pan and incorporate all of those flavors that are in the bottom of the pan. Maybe like 30 seconds to a minute. Make sure that it cooks. And that's true the same when I make if I'm making another sauce and I'm using tomato paste. I usually add it. I have here a can of diced peeled tomatoes. You could do the same with whole peeled tomatoes. You could do it with crushed tomatoes or like a tomato puree. In season, you could do it with fresh tomatoes, of course. I'd recommend peeling them unless you cut them pretty small, and then the skin will disappear. And then we're gonna add a little bit of more salt because we added our tomato. So just a little bit more salt, and bring this to a simmer. And then one of the main components for this dish is cilantro. And again, I use all of the cilantro, stems, the leaves, everything, and give it, a nice chop. No need to chop it too fine. It's gonna, again, render a lot of the water from the leaves into your board, and so just making sure that we chop the stems just as is into the sauce. just like that. Smells fantastic. And mix it up. And so now once it's in this stage, you know, you can lower the heat a little bit to a nice simmer and cook it for about, you know, 10, 15, 20 minutes. We're back after about 10, 15 minutes. Our sauce has been cooking slowly. So we're just gonna carefully remove the lid and set it aside. Before I add the fish, give it a little bit of taste just to make sure if we need to adjust the seasoning before we add the fish. Great, really nice. The lemon, you still taste the cilantro, the tomatoes, and the beautiful spice that we made. So, as I mentioned earlier, you could use any type of fish. Here we have our cod that we seasoned earlier. So we're gonna put it facing up. Just like that, and there's no need to drown it, just to place it gently into, you know, the sauce, slightly push it in, kind of half in the sauce, half not in the sauce. Just like that. Just leave a little bit of spacing in between. Just like that, and the last piece of fish. That's just gonna go here in the middle. Beautiful. So we're gonna do that. It's so nice. We wanna make sure that before we put the lid back on, it's like that, beautifully simmering, just gently. We don't want it to go too. Simply put on the lid and come back to it in about 7, 8 minutes, making sure that the fish is not overcooked, but just perfectly done. So our fish has been cooking for about 7, 8 minutes, and let's check on it, see if it's ready. Aha, beautiful. So the one thing you really don't want to do is overcook your fish, because dried fish was never a good thing. And I'm gonna turn off the heat because it's ready to go. And just one last nice little touch that we could do is add a little bit more of our spice just on top. So it's always nice to add a little bit of the uncooked spice. It just has a little bit more fresh notes to it. And then just finish it up with a few leaves of cilantro, a little fresh texture. And you could serve this, you know, on its own. You could serve it with some rice or some couscous. Whatever you do, make sure that you have a lot of great bread. So either challah if it's a Friday or anything else, because dipping some bread in the sauce is the way to go. I'd like to also add a little bit of drizzle of olive oil. Again, some fresh uncooked olive oil, just like that, over the top. And there you have it, our cod, spice, and lemon Chryme. Hope you enjoy this one, it's delicious. So we made our fennel salad, we made the fish, and now I have a vegetable dish to show you. It is fall, winter, in between. Squash or butternut squash is the season. You could try doing it with a kabocha squash, would work great. If you want to try this dish with celery root or rutabaga or any type of root vegetables, the idea is it's a sort of a side dish that could also be a main if you make enough of it. But just about roasting in a pan some vegetables and then serving them with a little bit of labneh, with this great thickened yogurt and some chopped hazelnuts. So as with our other dishes, we're gonna start by preparing our spice blend. So here we have a little bit of sumac. We have, again, our Aleppo chili flakes, some smoked paprika, a little bit of ginger, and also a lot of anise seeds, green anise seeds. So in order to do that, the only spice that we want to slightly grind is the anise seeds. All the other ones are already powdered. So I'm going to grind them. Again, not too much, just so there's also a little bit of texture. To continue, I'm just going to add the anise into here, and also add the rest of the spices. Into here, and then with our spoon just mix it all up. And again, as we spoke about with the other recipes, you could definitely make this step ahead of time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to lay out here my squash, basically a butternut squash that I peeled, cut in half lengthwise, and then sliced. And I'm really treating this as if this was a steak or a piece of fish or anything. So I'm going to lay them flat and season them with some salt and then some spice. And you definitely could do again this part as we spoke with earlier about the fish. You could definitely season your butternut squash ahead of time. In this case, because it's not the fish, feel free to add the salt component even ahead of time. You'd have no problem. And then a little bit of salt here. And now what we will do is add some olive oil into our pan. There's no need to have it too hot. You're just going to sear the squash, and it's going to get lots of color at first, but then it's going to be a bit raw in the center. So put your squash in, and we will increase the heat as we go to start cooking it. But I wouldn't start with a pan that's too hot. So arranging them nicely like that, space them out so they have enough room. So it definitely fits very nicely. To get a little bit more flavor, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple of cloves of garlic here. I'm not even going to chop them. I'm going to leave them with the skin on just to get flavor. And then set this aside. Towards the end, once the squash is kind of ready, we're going to add a little bit of lemon juice. But another nice thing that I'd like to show you that you could use for other roast vegetables, again, in the oven or in a pan, is cooking as we cooked the lemon earlier with the fish, but roasting the lemon. So what I mean by that is you can take your lemon, cut it in half. I'm going to reserve one half for the end, and then I'm going to cut the other half just like that, these long wedges, and basically put them in between kind of my squash pieces. So they're going to give some acidity to the squash as it's cooking. Give it a nice color and a nice texture in the bottom. We also want to cook it, so I'm going to bring the lid back and let it cook for about, about 4 or 5 minutes, and then remove the lid, flip it over. It's going to get a nice color on the bottom, but also start to soften. We're going to flip it on the other side and continue cooking it. So our butternut squash has been cooking for about 5-6 minutes. Let's check and see what's happening. So another trick or tip, if you will, when you're opening a lid on these type of cooking, there's always a lot of water and condensation. So watch out so you don't get burned or it drips on you or anything in the steam. So kind of stay back. But also, I like to kind of let it all fall back into the pan. It's really deglazing all of this beautiful stuff that's sticking to the bottom of the pan. So it's really steaming it, you see. Because we haven't added a lot of oil. A lot of it's natural steam. So you see it's getting this beautiful kind of color right here. So turn on. There we go. And then same thing, just make sure everything is turned nicely. And put the lid back on and let it cook for another 5 to 7 minutes on the other side. While this is cooking, what we could do is prepare some of our kind of last garnish or addition to this dish. Here I have some some whole toasted hazelnuts. Really bring great texture, a lot of nutty flavor. If you want to use any type of nuts, whether it's almonds or walnuts or pecan, by all means. This could also work very nicely if you had some cranberries. You can even add cranberries or raisin into the pan, kind of on the last part of it, not from the beginning, because they might burn just a little bit. So I have these toasted hazelnuts, and I like to simply, nearly one by one, just with a knife, cutting them you know, not to a perfect half because they fall apart, but spend some time, it's worth it. You know, if you're trying to do like that big coarse chopping, some of it are big, some of them are fine, and by the end of it, you have a lot of powder. And here you could really get this beautiful, nearly half size hazelnut. So take it slow. We have time anyway. Our squash is not ready yet, so might as well use this time and make something of it. Another trick that you could do is simply, you see, with the blade of the knife, just be very careful, is smash them like that. That's also one way to go about it. You can nearly lean the tip of the knife on a cutting board and then go one by one, and it makes it a bit easier. Another great trick, if you want to try it, is by taking 2 mixing bowls, placing your hazelnut in the bottom of one, and then with the second one, smashing them. And you see you get these beautiful, big, coarse pieces of hazelnut with not too much of kind of a flour texture. So this will be ready for when our dish is complete and we want to finish it up. So that's something. And that's something that you could definitely do ahead of time. Again, you don't need to wait. You can have a jar of like toasted chopped hazelnut at all time. Use it in salads, sprinkle it on different cheeses and vegetables. It's just fantastic. And we'll be back with this soon once it's ready. So the butternut squash has been cooking on its other side for about 5-7 minutes, and let's see if we're ready to serve this dish. So you can check with a knife to make sure that it's beautiful. It enters, it's soft. We also don't want to cook it too much, so it falls apart. So you do want to give it a little bit of texture, or leave a bit of texture. And you could definitely make this ahead of time and warm it up or serve it at room temperature as a side dish. You can chop it into pieces, into a salad. A lot of great ways to use this technique. And as I said, you can really roast any type of vegetable like that. Radishes, turnips, celery root, rutabaga, carrots. And so I'm going to do that. So this will be ready to go. I'm going to add a little bit of lemon juice in here. Just like so. And turn off the heat. And so you could definitely serve it as is, straight out of the pan, warm or hot, or you could do something that's also fun that I like to do. So grab a plate or serving platter if you're serving for a large group of people. So here I have some labneh, or labneh, depending how you pronounce it. So this labneh is basically a thickened yogurt. It's available pretty much everywhere these days. Middle Eastern stores, Whole Food carries it. If for some reason you cannot find labneh locally or have it delivered, grab any whole fat yogurt that you can put your hands on. Take a strainer, line it up with either a kitchen towel or cheesecloth. If you happen to have some, just pour it in, make a knot on the top, tie it with a string or butcher twine, hang it from one of the kitchen cabinets doors, and just let all the water drop down for about a day or so at room temperature in the kitchen, and you're going to get something quite similar to this very beautiful, nice and thick. You see, it's a really great thick texture. And so we're just going to spread it all over the plate like that. Nice, beautiful layer like that. And then we're going to simply grab our squash and place it on top, just like so. There we go. couple of more pieces. This is a small plate, but if you're doing a larger platter, you should be totally fine. As I mentioned earlier, the lemons will be just as delicious. So we're going to grab one of those kind of cooked lemons and give it a rough chop. Beautiful. And just, scatter them, sprinkle them all over the plate. Just like that. And then a little bit more of our, if you remember, of our uncooked spice that we did earlier, maybe a touch of salt. And then to finish it all up, our beautiful toasted and coarsely chopped hazelnuts all over the place. And here you go. You have your spiced pan-roasted butternut squash, Lebanese toasted hazelnut, and roast lemon. Hope you enjoy all of this.